All right, welcome back. Well, that's where we left off. I was building this extruded aluminum workbench cart thing. Right, it's nice and done. I think it looks really good. Time to start printing. Right. All right. So I wanted to go ahead and kick off a new project, but the wife wanted maybe something festive for Christmas. I really didn't want to create anything new on Fusion 360, so I went on to Thingiverse and said, hey, you know what? Everyone's crazy about this baby Yoda. You want me to print it and maybe you could paint it? You know, I really want to start using up this black filament before it goes bad on me. And, it's Yoda, baby Yoda wearing a Santa outfit. It's pretty cute. She's like, oh, yeah, let's do that. And I said, okay. And you know what? I want to do a nice long print anyways. So I did a decent size. This print was going to take about 19 hours to complete. So I kicked it off at night. Everything was looking great. I knew this was going to run into about when I came home from work the next evening. And the wife comes home from work twice through the day. She works locally and she actually works 2 jobs. So I said, oh, okay. Man, can you check on it? So she calls me, like, right during our break. John, I got some bad news for you. I said, oh, let me guess. It stopped printing. She's like, oh, yeah. I said, all right. Is the bed cold? She's like, yeah. I said, well, we all know what that means, right? The bed's cold. It's done. I said, okay, just, throw me on video chat. I'd like to see where it's at. Well, it only had about 6 hours left. Yeah. I said, well, she's like, well, do you want me to resume? I'm like, you know what? Let's give it a try. So she resumes the print. And when she hits resume, as you see in this video, the printer just power cycles. I'm like, oh, okay, this is weird. And we go through this about 5 times. It's in the video. I only show it like twice here, and then it finally starts to resume print, and it became spaghetti. It was a loss. So I come home, I look at it, I look at the print, and what it printed it had to have been the best print I've ever seen out of this printer. I could barely see the lines. It was perfect. I was like, this is okay. You know what? Let's run a calibration cube or something. Let's just make sure this printer is working. So I turn it on, and let me just demo right here what happens. So I turn it on, right? And nothing, right? Look at this. Nothing. Let's try it again. Nothing. After cycling this a few times, I was like, okay, I got some life. And the BL Touch is lighting up, it's blinking and on, up, and then the cooling fan stops, and then that's it. So I said, okay, turn it off. Turn it back on, as you see in the video here. It just doesn't want to go. So I said, okay, let's leave it on. I just heard it click. Should probably turn it off. Who knows what's going to happen, right? So then I said, okay, it's actually doing something. No, I'll just leave it on. It may surprise us. I turn it on again. I just leave it this time. And then after a little bit, it's starting to run, and then boom, it comes to life. I'm like, all right, we're getting somewhere. So let's sit there for a little bit, a couple minutes. So all right, let's do some preheating. So I said, okay, because I know I'm going to replace the filament. I want to run out the filament out of the hot end. and I heat up the bed and the hot end. I just want to do both. I know you only had to do the hot end. And this is what happens. It reboots again. So I go through this a couple times. I'm like, okay, well, let's just try the hot end. That's really why I need to start first off fishing it through. Heat up the hot end, feed the filament, the white filament through, goes through, feed it. All right, got the white out, the black out. Now it's just going with white. Perfect. All right, let's start heating up the bed. Boom. Power cycles. Oh, okay, so the next test is right. Let's reverse that. Let's go ahead and do the bed next and leave the hot end alone. And every time I set the temperature, as you see here, pretty low, 55, 65, it reboots. All right. I've emailed and I've gone through IM with Creality on this for a couple days now. And it goes to life. You saw, okay, look, that's how long it took to come up. I've gone through Creality on this numerous times. You know, they sure, you know what? I got an electronics background. That's from high school. You know what? How much of that I retained, I don't know. But, you know, I have multimeters. I'm certified at soldering. And I'm not afraid to tackle anything. But when you send Creality an email or an IM and they say, hey, take a multimeter to it. Will the average Joe do something like that? No, they'll be like, I ordered a printer, I expect it to work. You know, I waited for a printer like this. It is exactly what I wanted. Large build volume, dual Z-axis, auto bed leveling, huge surface area, touchscreen display. I mean, really, it's everything I wanted in a printer. However, when we look at these budget printers, we overlook one thing, and it's a huge thing: the power supply. The Ender 3 Pro offers a Meanwell power supply for a reason. It's a quality power supply. Anyone that knows power supplies knows of this power supply. They know it's a great power supply. I really didn't put two and two together about this. You know, I did some reading. I didn't, power supply. You know what? We get one with our laptops. We get some, we get a brick with everything. How bad can a power supply be? You know, and then, you know, we see the early posts of this machine about the faulty power supplies. I'm like, well, I got mine towards the middle of October. And it came with the newest firmware. So was I out of the woods? Apparently not. I mean, it's... These things could burn down your house. Burn down the structure that they're in. This is how bad the quality is of these units. Why doesn't Creality offer a reputable brand power supply like Meanwell with all of them, right? I certainly would have opted in for the better power supply for this model if it was available. Make it part of your checkout list. Am I giving up on the printer? No, because you know what? On the next video, I ordered a power supply, as you'll see right here. This is when I ordered on Amazon. It's another $100. I would gladly have paid for this power supply, knowing that top quality, it's in here, it's properly grounded, and I'm not going to have a failure or a house fire when I come down. My kids are dead, my wife's dead, my dog's dead, and yet it was just because I was printing something. So I really think that we should take a seat back here and look at these products, right? You know, we all are budget conscious, most of us. You know, we're doing this as a hobby. We're doing this maybe as a startup, you know, but think about the safety that's involved with these things. On my next video, which I hope you will tune into, I'm going to take this apart, check out the wiring. I'm not a fan of crimped connectors by any means. Everything should be soldered and shrink wrapped on with shrink tubing. I'm not a fan of electrical tape. It heats up, it unravels. There's a proper way to do things. And I'm going to dissect the power supply that's in this machine. You know, you should see nice copper. You should see a nice layer on there protecting everything. We're going to see what's in here. You know, I'm heavily disappointed that I have to go through this as a hobbyist. You know, I don't want to take anyone away from 3D printing by any means. However, I want people out there to understand the safety of these units. You know, when I take this out, I have to discharge those large capacitors in there. I don't want to shock anyone, or, you know, I mean, and we're going to test the grounding on there also, making sure that, hey, this machine better be grounded properly. I mean, here in the U.S., we have ground for a reason, help prevent you getting electrocuted. So I'm sorry this isn't a video of what you know, I typically do, but I promise you the next one will be a lot better. I just wanted to get this message across to people. So I have it on order. It'll be here. The next video will be posted soon with what actions I take, and hopefully the correct actions to fix this unit permanently, and so I can actually start enjoying this with not having to worry about my house burning down. I know people are thinking, well, no, that can't happen. Oh, yes, it can happen. So, you know, it's sorry, I mean, you saw what just happened right here. And I don't trust it. So it's now getting turned off, unplugged, and the next video we'll tear this thing apart and do it the correct way. So hey, you know what? I appreciate you for watching. Please subscribe. You know what? This isn't the means of the end of Creality or any other ones. You know what? Just keep your eyes open for quality parts. That's all. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, share if you'd like. Definitely appreciate it. Thank you.